Hello, America, and to our friends around the world, greetings and welcome back to what I am believing will be the final video of March is Women's Month, unless something happens in the next couple days. As I'm recording it, this is Thursday. This will be posted for the 31st, which is Monday. As you can tell, at least tentatively titled, this one deals with ex-wives becoming activists and using their ill-gotten gains from divorce settlements. So when you look at somebody such as Steve Jobs, who's, I don't know if he was still married to her when he died, but his wife receiving all of that money. When you see somebody such as Jeff Bezos, his wife receiving all of that money, and these women having done nothing to have earned it, leave it in the comments if you disagree. I don't care. Those men were the innovators, whether you like them or not. They are the ones who had the sleepless nights, that got up early, that went out and did the work. And even, look at what was it, Google, the garage. They rented the garage from a woman who later became one of their wives and eventually ex-wife. And then the other founder married the sister and then got divorced, and she ran YouTube into the ground. Um, Anti-Tesla protest shake London, and a Musk insider's ex-wife is behind it. This is from the Economic Times. The website is economictimes.indiatimes.com. So I don't know if India Times is a subsidiary or if Economic Times is a subsidiary of the India Times. But regardless of who it is that owns what, the focus is on the fact that an insider's ex-wife had a settlement. And this goes into the motivation behind why divorce courts make these lavish settlements. Now, the 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 bar room talk, the locker room talk is, oh yeah, it's because women spend 3 times, 10 times as much as men on nonsense. That's why they do it, is to prop up the economy, because they will go and spend money on useless consumer crap. And you can make that argument, and I'm certain there's consumer indexes that demonstrate that this is a fact. But here's the other fact. This is another reason that if you are a single man, you want to protect your finances, your industry, your innovations, your wealth, so that it can't be stolen by a rogue divorce court that's going to give a woman who is most likely a leftist, as all women are feminist, and therefore by the process of association or transitive association, I believe it is, you cannot be a feminist and not be a leftist. They are synonymous. They are intertwined. Tesla facing mounting protests worldwide, activists accusing Elon Musk of supporting authoritarianism, far-right politics. Demonstrations, vandalism, boycott campaigns have intensified across US, UK, Canada. Investigations reveal ties between protest organizers and Democrat megadonors. Meanwhile, Musk claims a coordinated effort to damage Tesla's reputation. As Tesla's stock tumbles and brand perception shifts, the electric vehicle giant finds itself at the heart of an escalating political economic battle. Right off the bat, what jumps out to me is these authoritative protesters are protesting his perceived association with authoritarianism. You can't make this up. People are stupid. You cannot fix stupidity. If you try to fix stupidity, they're going to drag you down and they're going to beat you to death with experience. Anti-Tesla protests erupted across London, part of a broader global movement against Musk. These demonstrations, which include vandalism of Tesla showrooms and public protests, have an unexpected financial backer, Karla Jurvetson, a prominent Democrat donor from California. That's not all. She's a psychiatrist by profession, and she's contributed over $500,000 to Indivisible Action, a political action group linked to the protests. Her ex-husband, Steve Jurvetson, remains one of Musk's closest allies, a billionaire venture capitalist. Steve Jurvetson was an early investor in Tesla, continues to sit on the board of SpaceX. The former couple, once united in their support for Democrat causes, now find themselves on opposite sides of a growing movement against Tesla. We've all seen it, most likely, and that is the political alignment graph charting women not just in North America or in the United States specifically, but in Western society as a whole, Western Europe, Canada, America, and that is the growing divide between men who are perceived as being right wing, which I contend that most of the men aren't right wing, they are centrist. It is the women who are going off the cliff into leftism. But you can see these charts everywhere showing that there's this growing divide amongst men and women. Indivisible, a Washington based advocacy group, is the driving force behind the Musk or Us campaign, which is mobilizing protests across the US and UK. Organization provides activists with toolkits featuring pre-made protest signs, guides, staging town halls. According to its website, the group aims to support the massive organizing effort it's going to take to defend our democracy. And remember, democracy is a transfer word. It means our bureaucracy. And what they're afraid of is the gutting of the bureaucracy, because that's how they rule, is by fear and intimidation of a bureaucratic, unelected cabal. One of the first things I learned about, and this is nearing 10 years ago, was the senior executive services. It's the middle management of the bureaucracy. So the moment a manager, the senior executive services of the government, is about to be uncovered for doing wrong, they just shuttle them from one agency, from one office to another. And then that ends it. So I'm a big fan of gutting this bureaucracy. Indivisible has been vocal in its criticism of Musk's leadership of the DOGE Trump admin initiative focused on cutting government spending. Group argues that Musk's influence is leading to policy decisions that benefit billionaires. It quotes, "We cannot allow Republicans to abandon their responsibility to uphold our Constitution." Where in the Constitution does it say bureaucracy? One bureaucracy under God, or indivisible with bureaucracy, in the pledge or any of the, in the Declaration, anywhere. It doesn't. The bureaucracy is a cancer that has grown out of control and needs to be gutted and treated as a cancer with poisons and with burning, just like you would with any other cancer. The article goes on to talk about how it's happening in London, honk if you hate them, and nonsense like that. What it doesn't seem to go into detail is that it talks about the supply kits. It doesn't talk about how they're paying these protesters to go from site to site. And there's been many reports in the past that demonstrate these protests are not only paying these agitators, but they're paying their legal bills. So let's see. Activists are not merely demonstrating, they are urging owners to sell their cars. You've seen the videos of, I just saw one right before recording this, of somebody driving what looked like a Nissan pickup, cutting off a Tesla driver, and then getting, being more focused on antagonizing the Tesla driver and ending up causing an accident at an intersection. We've seen the other issues where they stop them in the middle of traffic, get out, and become threatening. They're going to threaten the wrong person, and they're going to be ended. And I think that's what they want. They want that confrontation so they have an excuse to escalate even more, because that's what feminists and leftists want. They want that violence. They are a death cult. In a statement, the group said, "We are holding Elon to account." No, they're not. They're terrorizing people. They say they're not happy with fueling the far right in the USA. And that's not true. The far left is feeling its own anger, and they're doing a provocation. They're poking the bear, so to speak, wanting the bear to lash out so they have an excuse to call the ranger to shoot it and put it down. That's what's going on here. While many protests remain, no, they aren't. No, I support one's right, under the First Amendment, for freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly. But no, we're beyond that. These are organized, paid agitators, and they need to be treated as such. In Seattle, 4 Cybertrucks were set ablaze. In Vegas, vehicles were torched outside a service center, where they further vandalized with "resist" spray painted everywhere. In South Carolina, authorities arrested a man for setting fire to charging stations. These are terrorists. They aren't using their First Amendment right to peaceably assemble. They are lying. These are agitators, violent extremists, and they need to be put down, either incarcerated or however. Musk, who has become a key ally of President Trump, has dismissed the protests as politically motivated, as obvious, evidenced by all of this. Federal agents are investigating whether these incidents constitute domestic terrorism. Bimbo Bondi, Bleach Blondie, has vowed to hold organizers. Bleach Blondie, is a geriatric post-wall wannabe pinup news anchor host. She's an idiot. She is a poster child for why you don't want DEI or affirmative action. She can't. She couldn't. She couldn't. She couldn't litigate her way out of an open paper bag. Let's see. Writing on X, he claimed at least some of it is organized and paid for by left-wing organizations, as stated with Jurvetson, the leftist that's funding $500,000, if not more, because that's just publicly disclosed funds. How much is she, moving in, backroom deals, in veiled and hidden efforts? Let's see. Essentially, Tesla just makes electric cars and has done nothing to deserve these evil attacks. In fact, many people have said it. Tesla was the darling of the left, of the liberals, of the Democrats, until he said this bureaucratic nonsense is out of control. Having to torture these sea creatures, I think that was the line for him, having to torture the sea lions, for, making them, suffer the acoustic abuse. Despite Steve Jurvetson, despite his ex-wife's involvement in funding anti-Tesla protests, continues to support Musk. The best investment I ever made, buying a Tesla for everyone in my family and at future ventures. Meanwhile, Tesla stock suffered. Yeah. It'll recover. Now we just need to get spineless, ballless moron Mike Johnson and get rid of him and push him onto an oil derrick in the Gulf of America and just isolate him forever, and get somebody in Congress who will actually create legislation to make these cuts permanent. All right. Thank God March, is Women's Month is over. I will still continue sharing educational and newsworthy items of feminism abuses upon society, but this has been extraordinarily dark. Stay safe.